Hi, I'm Ann Glimmer. I'm a writer from Sweden who recently got myself a US literary agent. And in this video, I'll be talking about my writing journey and how I got an agent. 5 years ago, in spring 2020, COVID had just broken out. And with all the extra time on my hands, since I didn't have to travel to work every day, I decided to write that scene I'd been carrying around in my head since forever. And the words started pouring out of me. I wrote for several months and I wrote almost an entire novel, but I started to feel like it was meandering. I had no idea where things were going. I was just discovery writing. And to be frank, it wasn't working. I was just randomly connecting one event after another without any end goal in mind. And I started to realize I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. So that's when I turned to internet and started searching for how to write a novel. And the next year or two, or forever really, I spent more time learning about writing than actually writing. I read every blog post and watched every single YouTube video I could find about writing. And there is a lot out there. I learned so much about story structure, character arcs, world building, sentence structure, narrative modes, and on and on. And I really, really loved it. I love to challenge myself and to learn not only about how to write a novel, but also to understand human nature, different personality types, or like how to portray a diverse cast while maintaining social awareness and consideration towards other people's cultures. It's so fascinating. After about 1 year, I learned about critique partners and beta readers, and I managed to find a few other writers to trade manuscripts with, and we gave each other feedback. I learned so much from that as well. I restructured and rethought my novel several times, but I must admit, I had done the typical rookie mistake and decided to write a fantasy series as my first novel. And it was a 4 book series. And I struggled a lot. But since I had done so many mistakes from the beginning and also was trying to write a monster of a story, it was really hard to fix everything. So after 3 years of writing, I had a finished book, the first in that series, but I still wasn't quite satisfied with it. And that's when I had a new idea for a novel, Rue Hates Kiss. That thought just came to me one day. I have no idea from where, but it just struck me. And I love the concept. I Googled it and I could find nothing about it. No books, no movies, nothing. And I was like, this is brilliant. I have to write this. So I started writing this book. And this time I used everything I had learned during the past 3 years. And I did it right from the beginning. I plotted a beginning, a middle, and an end with complete character arcs. And I decided to reuse the world building from my first book, since I had already developed quite a detailed magic system and folklore inspired creatures and everything. But I decided to set it in a different time period, the Scandinavian Iron Age, which is just before the Viking Age. I've always been fascinated by Swedish history, so this felt like a no brainer for me. And then, after writing for about 8 months on this new novel, and I was almost finished with my first draft of it, this went viral. A post about reversed writing prompts, and one of them was Drew hates kiss. And this was all over the internet, all over writers groups. And it was my story idea. I was devastated, thinking someone else, someone already established author, would write this story now and publish it before I had a chance to publish mine. But then I thought, eh, let them write it. If someone else writes True Hates Kiss, it won't be the same as mine. My world, my characters, and all the twists and turns in my story are still unique to my story. And even if someone else writes True Hate's Kiss, that is just basically a trope like any other trope. So I kept writing. And after less than a year after I started writing it, my first draft was done. And I got myself some alpha readers, the first readers to read a story. And I got some really good feedback, mainly about my main character being too back and forth in her feelings and thoughts. I did some serious editing to fix that. And there were a lot of other things too, but I can't really remember all of it now. This was about a year ago. But I fixed a lot of things, and then I felt it's really solid. And since I had already decided I wanted to try and publish my book in the US, since it has a much bigger market for romantasy, I started translating my manuscript from Swedish to English, which took me about 2 months. And I can tell you, I will not write another novel in Swedish. Next time, I'll write it in English to begin with. But at the time when I started writing True Hate's Kiss, I wasn't ready to write in English. So it was the right decision at that point. But I have learned so much after translating it to English. So I think now I'm ready to write my next novel in English to begin with. So after translating it to English, I got some beta readers and they gave me great feedback, both developmental stuff, but also a lot about my prose, my actual words on paper, which I fixed. And around this time, uh, my time spent on YouTube and reading blogs shifted from learning about writing to learning about querying agents. Because in the US, you have to get an agent before you can get a publisher. That's just the process. Anyway, it turns out there's a lot to learn about how to query an agent. So a lot of time was spent on that. I also joined X, formerly known as Twitter, where I found a lovely community of writers in the same situation, also querying agents. And there is so much love to be found there and a consolation in having people to talk to who are going through the same learning curve and bumping into the same issues as you are. So I really advise you, if you are in the same position, to join X and the writing community there. Then in September 2024, I started querying agents, which of course was way too early. But at that point, I really thought my manuscript was good enough, as good as I could make it. I queried a few agents at a time, and over the course of 3 months, I think, I ended up querying a total of 30 agents at that point. But I didn't get many positive replies. I got one full request and one partial, but they led to rejections. That's when I started to think about what could be wrong with my manuscript. And in December 2024, I withdrew all my unanswered queries and got a new round of beta readers to try and find the problem. And to be frank, thanks to my newfound writing community on X, I got much better beta readers this time, and that made all the difference. They pointed out a lot of things that you might consider basic stuff that I wasn't even aware of. For example, how to use strong verbs like he stalked across the room instead of he walked across the room. It's a small thing, but it makes a huge difference in showing with less words what's happening. Make every single word count, you know? It's basic stuff, but still, it was new to me. And isn't that like crazy? After spending so much time for 5 years learning and learning and learning about writing, I still get these aha moments sometimes. And it's crazy, but I love it. So, anyway, I withdrew my queries in December and I spent another couple of months editing and improving my manuscript even more, perfecting my prose. And then after those edits, I felt ready to query again. And this was around March this year, 2025. And this time I got better results with agents requesting to see my full manuscript within just a few weeks after querying them. I sent about 10 queries per week and ended up querying about 60 agents in round two, which took a lot of time and effort because you need to research each and every one of them and personalizing your query letter to each of them. But it's worth it, I think, to prove to them that you're serious and that you know what you're doing. So after about 2.5 months into my second round of querying, I had received 5 full requests and 3 partials. On the 14th of May, I woke up to a reply in my inbox from an agent who had my full manuscript. I was, of course, prepared for a rejection, but instead I got this. I really enjoyed True Hate's Kiss and would love to chat about it. Oh my God. This is a querying writer's dream come true. I scheduled the first time slot I could find, which was later in the evening the same day for me. But for the agent, it was first thing in the morning when they woke up. I spent the day being so nervous because I had heard of people who had been scheduled for calls, but then the agent didn't offer to represent them, but instead just wanted to give them personalized feedback instead. But I think that is super rare. The most common thing to happen during a call is that an agent actually offers to represent you. But I still was super nervous. So during that call, one of the first thing I blurted out was, "Are you offering to represent me? Or like, what is this call about?" And they just laughed and said that yes, this was an offer of representation. And I was so relieved and so happy. We had a really nice chat, and of course, I had done my research beforehand about what to ask an agent on the call. And I asked a lot of those questions, and I got a lot of great answers. So now I had an offer of representation from an agent. But following standard procedure, I did not accept. The agent and I agreed to set a 2-week deadline so I could reach out to other agents and see if anyone else wanted to represent me. It used to be 1 week years ago, but with everyone's busy schedules, it has been upped to 2. And I've even heard about people doing a 3-week deadline now. So, anyway, that call was quite late in the evening for me, so I didn't actually reach out to any agents that night. I did, however, post an update on X that I was now vague because for some reason that's what you do. You don't write, "I have received an offer of representation from an agent. Yay!" No, no. You write, "I'm vague," with lots of happy smiley faces. And then everyone knows that you got an offer. Yeah. So why not just write that you got an offer? I have no freaking clue. I mean, I can understand that you shouldn't write which agent gave you the offer because I don't think that's nice to the agent if you end up signing with another agent. But just writing that you got an offer? Ah. Anyway, I followed unspoken Twitter law and posted this because why not? So the next day, I reached out to the other agents who had requested my manuscript, but I also reached out to a couple of agents who had not yet requested my full manuscript because I really liked those agents and I thought they might be a good fit for me. And just because they hadn't requested to see my full manuscript yet didn't mean that they weren't interested. 2 of those agents replied almost immediately and asked to see my full manuscript. So I really recommend that you do this if you are in the same situation. And this was the email I got from one of those 2 agents. I'd love to read your story. Please attach your full manuscript. And that agent then got back to me a week later with this. "Can you send me your availability this week? I would love to set up a video chat and talk about your story." Mm. Can you imagine my excitement? A second call We scheduled it for a couple of days later, and we had a lovely chat. And she also gave great answers to all of my questions. And besides the two agents who have now offered me representations, I had five more agents with my full manuscript at that point. Two of them kindly rejected me and said the story wasn't a fit for them, but three of them replied that they would not have time to read my manuscript and would have to step aside for that reason. And I thought a little bit about this 3 week deadline, if that would have made a difference. But to be honest, I'm not sure it would, but who knows? Anyway, at that point, I didn't care. I was just so happy to have received not just one, but two offers of representation. And I compared the two agents, their answers, and the choice for me wasn't really that hard because the second agent had a lot more to say about my manuscript. She had some really great thoughts about a couple of tweaks she thought I should make. And also, I just really felt like I was vibing with her. She was my kind of person. She was direct, assertive. And I really felt like I could trust her in all things publishing, where I myself feel like a total noob. So I got back to her, Caitlin, and told her I wanted her to be my agent, and she was just as happy as I was. And she whipped out our agent contract, and on the 28th of May, we signed it. And then, like 5 minutes later, she posted about it on social media. And that's when I remembered I had to get back to that first agent who had offered me representation. I emailed them like 5 minutes after Caitlin posted about it on X. Ooh, don't be like me. Make sure to inform all other agents before they found out through social media. But it was fine. They emailed me back and congratulated me, so it was all good. No hard feelings, just professionalism all the way. Although I can imagine that agents getting rejections from writers is just as hard, or maybe even harder, as writers being rejected from agents. But it's all part of the line of work. You have to have some tough skin to be both a writer and an agent, to be honest, or anyone working in the publishing industry, I guess. So here I am, 4 weeks into having an agent. And let me tell you, it's been a ride. And if you watched this far, why not give me a like and a follow? And maybe in the next video, I will tell you what happened after I got an agent.